There was never a moment where I thought Yen's going to change her mind here. She's not going to actually take her until the very end.
No, that's completely fair. And I think that's honestly the biggest problem with the show, at least for me, is the whole point of the novels is it is Geralt, Ciri, and Yennefer. Like, it's that family and it's that relationship. Ciri's the main character. It's Ciri. It's not Geralt. It's Ciri's story, I should say. And to hit up on all of that. And in the show, I don't know if it's because it's only 8 episodes. I don't know if it's only 8 episodes because they don't want to do it to 10. If it's $100 million and someone at Netflix is like, we're not giving you $100 million to have people talk in rooms. We need monsters. We need to market it as Henry Cavill being Witcher Superman. I don't know what it is, but you're exactly right that we're not feeling this. There's no weight of this because it's too much go, 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 go. And there's not enough of them actually being together and cultivating those relationships.
Welcome to The Story Thinker, a Webtoons and Witcher podcast for superfans with scene-by-scene analysis. Featuring sharp co-hosts for a fuller picture, we dive deep into character psychology, relationships, and theories. We'd love it if you could like, subscribe, comment, and rate us on all podcast platforms and social media. For bonus content, you can support The Story Thinker on Patreon. Let's begin.
Hi everyone, and welcome to episode 8 of our coverage of The Witcher on The Story Thinker. And today I'm very excited. We have special guests from another Witcher podcast called On the Path. And you guys should really check it out. They have podcasts on the books, and they're doing a podcast on the TV season as well. So welcome to Brett and Lucy, who will now introduce themselves.
Thank you.
Hello. Lucy, you can go ahead.
Thank you. So I'm Lucy. I go by Lucy J. Robin online. I am a Witcher fan. I guess I'm still relatively new to the Witcher world. I started playing the Witcher games about this time last year, and that got me into the Netflix series. And I have started the books. I'm not much of a reader, so I'm trying to make my way through the audiobooks. And yeah, I just sort of fell in love with the story and the characters, and I felt like I could really relate to a lot of them in weird ways, not in monster hunting ways, but just in more personal ways. And other than that, I'm a software developer. I stream on Twitch, and yeah, I do On the Path podcast with Brett as well.
All right. Well, I'm Brett, and online, generally, like the Fox Bride is a name that's, I stream Witcher stuff. Basically have my hands in almost all pots with The Witcher. Our podcast On the Path, it started off as called Whispers of Oxenford. It was just me talking about the books mainly. Got through with that, got in touch with Lucy, and thankfully she agreed to come on as well. And we started with going over The Witcher 3, and then the show came out. So now we're going through the show. Once we finish that, we're going like a main quest by quest of The Witcher 3. But everything, play Gwent's, stream that's part of a Gwent esports team called 𝘬𝘪𝘵𝘍𝑒. Basically anything, all things Witcher, as you can see kind of behind me there. So, and I'm also a high school teacher, social studies, kind of all subjects there. Used to be a basketball coach. I'm not coaching now, and I'm not sure I'm going to go back because it's nice having free time and a life. Yeah. And if you're a basketball coach, mainly like a high school basketball coach or a college coach like I used to be, you don't really have a life outside of that. So it's nice, and I think I'm enjoying this time off right now.
Nice. Yeah, and there'll be links to everyone's, stuff down below. So you can check them out in the description. Awesome. Okay, so we have a lot to say. I know I have a lot to say. I'm sure you have a lot to say. I just want to have a little bit of a prelude. I personally found this episode to be the most, let's just say, convoluted, confusing, questionable. And I want to just appreciate everyone who put all their efforts into this work. And I know that, it's easy for us to sit on the outside and find criticisms. And I know that everyone has invested a lot of time and effort and to try and do their best. And I just want to acknowledge that. So I apologize in advance for the questions we'll raise on some things. Because I do know that it's much harder to do it when you're the one sitting in there in the chair and making like the writing decisions. So I want to acknowledge that.
Yeah, they're very ambitious, that's for sure, in what it is. And I think a lot of it right now is a lot is set up, especially by this episode, especially by the end. I mean, there's what, like 3 or 4 like massive cliffhangers, and it's more or less reserving full judgment to see kind of where they take it. And especially if you kind of quote, no, we don't really know where anything's going because they can change things up as they want. But there are big events in the books that you might know, and how they streamline it there. I'm kind of just waiting to see how they kind of tie it together, because that's going to be the big thing. If they can tie it all together, then it'll all be worth it.
Okay, so we're going to go by storyline. So we'll kind of leave Pier Morgan and everything that happens. We'll do that in one chunk. So just before we get to that, there's a bit about what happens in Cintra. So we have Dara finally confessing and telling Galadriel and Francesca, you know, hey, sorry guys, I've kind of been spying for Britannia all along. And he tells them that, you know, Dijkstra said, I don't need you anymore. And, you know, I'll get Ciri on my own. And Francesca says, you know, okay, everyone's out to get us because we're elves and they hate us. And it's, you know, it has nothing to do with the fact that we're aligning ourselves with Nilfgaard. Personally, I don't know what you guys thought, but one big element that I feel like The Witcher portrays is that the elves are in many ways the victims of this time period. Obviously, there's a lot of bad stuff happening to everybody across the continent, but they are portrayed as victims in many ways. But it's pretty clear to me that they, you know, the cycle of hatred is discussed a lot in The Witcher, and I see the elves as 100% falling prey to that. The cycle of needless hatred, hating people as a group because of the actions of some individuals from that group, and just the kind of like the collective trauma that the elves have accumulated over the years. And it seems to be like hatred is really ingrained in them, and they see themselves as, you know, the persecuted race, and everyone's out to get them. And I think it's honestly tipped the balance of their thinking, to the extent that they've also become blinded by hate. Mm-hmm. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think especially when we get to this point of the series, Francesca has sort of went from wanting to find a home for the elves and sort of just wanting to live peacefully with them, and she sort of turned it on its head now, and now she's wanting to go on the offense and fight back. So yeah, I totally know what you mean, where they've hatred is kind of ingrained in them now, and it's gone so far that they feel like they have to hit back at the humans as such.
Yeah, it's a big thing they've left out is, and you can see this, the wallet whole thing right there, is the 𝘴𝘰𝘪𝘴𝘰, which again, you talk about the cycle of hate. In the show, it seems very one-sided. It's the humans have persecuted them and the elves are oppressed, but we don't really see the elves fighting back until this time. And that's something in there that it's more a little gray area, is you can kind of see atrocities, if you want to call them, on both sides of it. And it's kind of one of those chicken or the egg things where, you know, to solve it, you have to stop the violence, but then they're just retaliating, but then the other side retaliates for the retaliating. And it's just, like you said, this endless cycle of it not stopping. And yeah, the way, I guess we can kind of get there, the way it ends with Francesca and them, that was pretty hardcore.
Intense, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, we'll get to it really quickly, but yeah, just before we do that, what's something else that happens in Cintra at this time with Fringilla and Cahir, which I have a lot to say about them. I'm very curious also what you guys think about them. But basically a big theme for Fringilla is that, you know, she's going from a follower to a leader, and she has to find, you know, what she wants out of life and how much autonomy she's willing to take, rather than, you know, blindly following what others want her to do. So she has this conversation with Cahir. She tells him, hey, you know, you were kind of right. The elves have left. They're not that loyal to our cause. And Cahir, you know, she's like, I wish Francesca would have told me and I would have helped her, which it's interesting because Fringilla in the beginning was portrayed to be very, very stern, very emotionless, very cold, and she's developed this friendship with Francesca. So when Francesca leaves, her first thought is not, oh my gosh, my political career is at stake. Her first thought is, I wish I could have helped my friend, which it's nice to see that human side of her. And that's actually one of the things I like about The Witcher, and probably every well-written story, I remember hearing an interview with Aaron Sorkin where he talks about when you're writing your villain cannot seem like the villain to you. You have to know the villain's motives, and the villain has to seem like a person. And there's a lot of people who do very bad things in The Witcher, but they are human to us, and we understand them and we sympathize for them. And Fringilla has really developed a softer side throughout this season.
I guess that'd be a good question to posit what is Fringilla? Is she a villain?
Yeah, because I think especially in the earlier episodes when she's it's at the end of episode 1 where she wakes up with Yennefer, or Yennefer wakes up with Fringilla, and she's definitely kind of painted as a bad guy here, and obviously after the events of Sodden. But I know what you mean. She does become more human over this series, and you start to feel for her, and as the relationship with Francesca develops, you do definitely see a more human side to her. And by the end of the series, I really, really like Fringilla, even after some of the questionable decisions that she makes. I kind of was rooting for her to, get whatever she was seeking from Emir. But whether or not she's a villain at the moment, I'm not sure, because there was a lot of her saying this series as well about Nilfgaard in general being liberators, and that comes up a lot, doesn't it? Trying to see it from their side and how they don't feel like they are bad people. So yeah, I don't know if there's a right or wrong answer for whether or not she's a villain.
Yeah, her role has been massively expanded, and it's one of the changes that I actually really like. Is we actually get a face of Nilfgaard, if you will, because she's kind of leading the non-military side, if you want to say. Kair is leading. He's another, both like you said before, Mindy, those two are definitely the most interesting to me, and the most interested I'm in to see how they go forth, because they are so different than the expected characterization of it that I honestly have no idea where they're going with it. But I do enjoy it, not Nilfgaard not being faceless that they kind of were before, that we actually get to see it. And like you said, to them, they're liberators. To the invade, that's the way it works. When you invade somebody, you're a liberator. If you're getting invaded, they're a conqueror. And we also hear Istrid throughout the season, tell Geralt, or it might have been the first season, when Nilfgaard provides him his research and doing all that and learning, and they're doing all that. And so to see this, you can call it murky or grayness of it, to not quite juxtapose with the Northern Realms, but it's both can be bad, both can be good, that there isn't a straight villain. Well, I mean, there are maybe some straight villains, but it's definitely not this side is totally bad, this side's totally good. They have their pros, they have their cons.
I don't know about you, but I kept thinking of very specific events in world history, recent world history, as I was watching The Witcher, which I don't know how much was the writer's intentions. I don't know how much of it is just human behavior is the same. And it's just whether it's through The Witcher world history, humans always have the same thing. I think I'm a liberator, and I'm killing thousands of people while liberating them. So yeah, I think it does reflect the way humans like to think of themselves as good, even when they're doing things that other people don't think are good. But regarding Cahir, I also did hear, I haven't read the books, but because I've been, reading online, I did hear that Cahir and Fringilla's roles were very much expanded. And I personally love it as well. I love that Fringilla clearly has an arc of, I want to discover my own power, which is what happens now in this conversation. Cahir tells her it's not just that she was your friend, it's that you wanted to show Emir that you were a good leader. And then he gives her this whole, so Cahir also is fairly intelligent and able to recognize her growth plan, which I find perceptive. And Cahir is another character that started out, as kind of the black knight. He was the faceless, evil, coming to kill everyone in Cintra, kidnap Cirilla. And over the course of these 2 seasons, he has become a human, and he's, become friendly with Yennefer and helps her out. And here, his interaction with Fringilla throughout their time in Cintra, he's kind of stuck in between the other generals who have a much more harsh view of how they should interact with elves, and with Fringilla, who has a more human view of how they should interact with the elves. And I feel like he's very much in a hard place, because he doesn't want to upset either party, and he understands, being nicer to the elves. Which, again, I find it very peculiar how he's able to cold-bloodedly, order the murder of everybody at in Cintra in the first season and at Sodden, but somehow he has sympathy for the elves.
Yeah, 𝘕𝘰𝘵𝘠, I just don't know exactly. He's a true believer, right? Like the way he talks about the white flame and trust in Emir. And yeah, like you said there, it's not everything's kind of matching up. I don't know exactly what to make of him. And in a way, Fringilla as well, because I thought I knew what it was. Like I said, Fringilla's been humanized a lot. And the partnership, there's that one scene that sticks out to me when Francesca is pregnant and they're in there and they're saying, well, I've never had a partnership. And they're like, oh, me neither. And it's like a genuine like friendship on top of that partnership. And so, yeah, both of them, I'm just cautiously eyeing. I don't know what to make of them.
No, I agree. Because I especially when they have this conversation in the episode where 𝘕𝘰𝘵 is sort of getting at Fringilla to almost take ownership of ordering the death of the elf baby. I feel like I don't trust him. Like when he was having that conversation with Fringilla, I was like, girl, like, I don't know if you should trust him here. He's going to throw you under the bus. Like, I don't know what's going on. But I think they've done that really well. And it's probably intentional because as much as they're trying to show us this human side of Nilfgaard, we probably shouldn't let our guard down and completely Nilfgaard down. We shouldn't completely, forget everything that's went on in the past.
But that's what's so fascinating to me about and getting these different perspectives is like y'all that have not read the books and don't know it, is me, I'm expecting certain things. And so when I see it, I'm like, wait, what is he getting at? Or what is it doing? And someone like 𝘕𝘰𝘵, he's not a general in the books. He's not this military commander. He's an agent and he's sent there to get Ciri and, you go from there. And like, so like you said, that I'm just looking at kind of cockeyed, like, how are they going to tie this back to it? Is it not going to be there? And so that's what I just love to hear from, the differences and the opposite of those expectations.
So I personally am very biased towards 𝘕𝘰𝘵. For some reason, I have taken an inexplicable love to him. So I really can't figure out why, but he's become my favorite character. So I am personally invested in him becoming a nice guy.
Okay, see this, oh my gosh, see, I want to talk so badly about, because there's certain things that I will not spoil anything, but he is my least favorite of things because of things that I won't say. But so people will love 𝘕𝘰𝘵, and I'll always be like, and people have read the books, I'm like, why? Because of so and so. And so now when people like him, I'm like, okay, we'll see. We'll see if it goes the way that it went before. So it's just, again, I just love hearing that. I get giddy.
That was like my favorite thing. This is a bit of a tangent, but when like maybe a new friend starts watching Game of Thrones and they're like, Ned Stark's my favorite character. And I'm like, oh, damn.
Yeah. Oh, good. A wedding. This will be good.
So I will admit, I actually did get a bit spoiled online about what 𝘕𝘰𝘵 does in the books. I mean, I don't even know if it's the same thing you're thinking of, because I might only know a small fraction of what actually happens. But again, I think you're right. Like, I don't know if the show is going to go in that same direction. So I feel like maybe it will happen, maybe it won't happen. So I'm trying to forget what I saw. Okay. But anyway, I do like the fact that 𝘕𝘰𝘵𝘵 is trying to help Fringilla, right? He tells her, okay, you should pretend that this was your plan. And like you said, he's trying to help her step into her power and also save their butts, honestly, really. Like, he is trying to make sure they don't get deposed, which doesn't really help, but okay. And, he refers back to the fact, he's like, you told me I should rave, let me rave. Which is back to her brutal killing of everyone except for 𝘕𝘰𝘵𝘵.
I love that scene.
Yep. So before we get to Pier Morgan, the last thing that happens with the elves is, unfortunately, Francesca succumbs to her hatred and her grief, and she and the elves are going around Redania. They're putting marks on the door, and the babies, get the marks on their chest as well. And I was horrified. I was like, why isn't everyone trying to stop her? Filandrel is gone. He's like, we got to do this for, revenge. And Gage is the only one who tries to stop her. So thank you, Gage, for being a moral person. But no, she decides, she's kind of like, I think she's crazed. And she's like, what has gotten in? Need not always be. And, whooshes her arms up and boom, all these babies are dead. What a wonderful way to show that you aren't in the right.
I love that line. Like, it's such a good line to at least justify, if you will, like cause of doing something. But yeah, this scene, very biblical, very much reminded me, you know, plague of Egypt kind of thing, of God smiting the firstborn when the Israelites were enslaved in Egypt. And I just, as it was happening, you could kind of see it coming. And I was like, oh man, are they going to do it? Are they going to do it? And then she does it, and the women start shrieking, and I'm like, oh God, they just went there. And so maybe this is like the birth of that 𝘬𝘰𝘪𝘴 I was talking about. Hopefully it is, but again, it'll be done differently. But yeah, it was disturbing, I think, to say the least.
Is that a book? Does that happen in the books, Brett?
No, that definitely does not. Francesca is another pretty big change. Yeah, she's not, again, I don't know if we want to go that way, but she does not have a baby in the book. She is not pregnant. Like, that's not a thing. That's something they've put into this for sure. Which again, it's interesting, and it takes it to a new direction that I'm actually excited to, because it's new and I have no idea what they're going to do with it.
Yeah, I like the fact that finally the elves were shown to be doing something bad, because I honestly I thought that they were portrayed too much as victims, and I didn't think it really made sense.
It was also just got really beaten over our heads throughout the seasons, of just so often they're showing like elves getting literally beaten, or one, like a little girl gets separated from their mother on this wagon. It's just like, like we know, like, man, like we get it, the elves are oppressed, and you're right, now they're actually like fighting back in a way that they had been doing, you know, throughout the books and throughout the stories as well, like long before. So, you know, that's a new angle that they're introducing that I can't wait to see for season 3, or hope to see, I guess. I don't know if they'll actually go through with it. I assume they will.
Yep. All right, so now we head to Pier Morgan and what is happening over there. So basically, Ciri has been possessed by Voleth Meir, and as we're going to go through the story, I have a lot of questions. I don't know if it's just me being a bad watcher and not connecting the dots, or if it's bad writing, but
I don't know how many answers I'm going to have, because I probably have just as many.
So at this point, I figured out like the mechanics of like why certain things happen, but I don't think the motivations are lined up properly. But anyway, we'll talk about after the story. So Ciri right now is possessed, and her real self, I guess, is in a ball. So obviously that part is understandable. She's in a ball at Cintra before the fall, and she sees everybody that she loves again. So clearly, like, it makes sense that she would want to stay in that world. Personally, if I were Ciri, I would be like, okay, clearly this is not real, so I gotta wake up somehow. Ciri doesn't do that. I don't know. Did you think it was like weird that she accepted her, I don't know, rewinding of her life? Like, what do you think she was thinking?
I know what you mean. It's very obvious that it's not real, because everybody that she sees there has obviously been killed in the sack of Cintra. But then I do kind of think she is meant to be quite a young girl, so she could maybe a bit more easily get caught up in all of it and just want to. This is obviously her dream, because I think, is it Yennefer that says Voleth Meir will find your deepest want and desire and your whatever hurts your soul and stick her finger in it. So obviously this is Ciri's dream, to be back having a normal life, going to the ball, seeing her family. So obviously Voleth Meir is just really, really playing on that and making it otherworldly and maybe hard to resist. But I know what you mean. Surely there's a point where she thinks, no, this is so clearly not a real world.
Yeah, I think it's a comfort thing as well.
Yeah.
Like, I obviously cannot put myself in her shoes of having lost literally everything and then having it again. Spoken before of having very lucid dreams, and those dreams that feel real, and the thought of her being in one of those, even though maybe deep down she knows it's not, it's just too comforting to be back in that moment. And it's better than anything she's had. That's when the world made sense. Everything's been a lie and all of this. So I think it was just more coping of somebody who's younger.
Yeah, and what's interesting is visually they portrayed the ball as having a lot more light and a lot more vivid colors than it was originally. So just another way of showing like what a positive experience it is for her.
Yeah, I thought it was really cool how I think, because obviously it's a dream, and we know as a viewer that it's a dream, and it shows you this scene of the ball, which we have seen before in the first series, and it's like really similar, but there's differences that make you think, oh, this is weird. Like even Calanthe says some of the same lines. The same guy comes up and asks her to dance, and she immediately jumps up rather than, she was a bit of a brat in the first series in this scene. I think she didn't want to dance. She was like in a bit of a huff. But this, obviously now she would give anything to be back in this life. So she like jumps the chance to get up and have a dance. And she's obviously so grateful to see Calanthe. So it's those differences, but it's also really familiar that I found a bit unsettling. I also noticed there was no Iced in this scene. He was not in this scene.
The back of his head was in the scene.
Is that, yeah?
Apparently the actor was, had scheduling conflicts.
Yeah, I thought maybe that was it.
It was funny. It was pretty apparent. It was cute. Even the Witcher has to succumb to the vagaries of reality.
Yeah.
But yeah, so this kind of goes back and forth between like Ciri in her dream and the Witchers in real life trying to awaken her. So Yennefer is, she's talking to Geralt, and she says, now I understand how special she is. And when I was teaching her, it felt wonderful, and I felt like I found what I was missing. Mm-hmm. And okay, so I was extremely upset at Yennefer's behavior. So I can understand she lost her magic. I actually think that part was good. She only identified with her magic. She didn't really have anything going for her. She never learned how to love herself. She lost her magic. She will do anything to get it back. And she was literally at life's risk. Fine, I get it. But I feel like the way they handled it was she seemed very flip-floppy. So it took her this is last episode, but she was all ready to betray her, and then like 2 seconds before she gets to the monolith, she like decides she regrets it. And here she tries to tell Geralt, oh, I felt great teaching her, and now I see how special she is. So if she wouldn't have been special, it would have been okay to sacrifice her. And like, if you wouldn't have felt great teaching her, then you wouldn't care about her life. Like, I don't know how Yennefer is portrayed in the books. And honestly, like to me, it's like you said, it's a separate thing. I'm fine with Yennefer in the show being a selfish person, but I mean, it's ridiculous. Like, she's like, I feel good teaching Ciri, so now I will take care of her because I feel great. She's insanely selfish, and she barely apologizes for what she did to her.
Yeah, this, and again, this just the insight I have. I don't want to keep doing it, but this is like way different. Yen is instrumental in training Ciri in the books, like through magic. And it's very much a Tissaia Yennefer show relationship, like where she calls her like Piglet. In the books, Yen calls Ciri like quite a bit, or often enough, like ugly duckling. And kind of in a way you can look at it as almost like a belittling, but it's kind of her way of tough love, training her to be, hardened, if you will. And yeah, this was a very, very rough sticking point. The fact that Yen would ever consider like turning in Ciri or not being it, that's just so like that never, like from the get-go, once Ciri and Yen were kind of together, it was very much a protected relationship in a way that like Geralt and Ciri was. So this was the thing too, that the whole season, and as was going on, I was kind of like with you there, like kind of gritting, like, oh, what are they going to do? Mm-hmm. And yeah, it didn't really work for me either.
Yes, I don't honestly, I mean, I'm okay because I didn't read the books. I don't expect her, I didn't have a previous expectation of her. So like, I didn't know, I got the sense from the advertisements and from the interviews, even before, just from the show, that they were going to eventually become a family. So, and I personally am fine with building up the angst and the drama and the betrayal before, so that they have to get through that betrayal in order to become a family. But I feel like it wasn't well done. I feel like the switch from Yennefer being ready to sacrifice her to regretting that choice was so fast. She didn't build up her regret. I didn't feel like she was that conflicted. Like when I watched it again, I paid careful attention to see if Yennefer looked conflicted, because the first time I had not seen it. Like when she went to Melitele and she met, she saw that Ciri was Geralt's child surprise. I barely saw that she registered that, and that she was like, oh shoot, like I have to now, that's the girl, and she, I'm gonna have to betray Geralt now. I don't know if it just wasn't emphasized enough that she felt conflicted over it. Her regret wasn't apparent. The fact that she's changed her mind 5 minutes before didn't make sense. And then suddenly she's all, oh, okay, Ciri, I'm going to protect you and I have to teach you. The switch was so fast, and I didn't feel it was built up.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like, I think when they first meet, there is that moment where she goes, choose your child surprise. But then I agree, there could have been a bit more back and forth with her, possibly, rather than she kind of immediately takes her away, right? She takes her through the portal. So yeah, I agree. There was never a moment where I thought Yen's going to change her mind here. She's not going to actually take her until the very end.
No, that's completely fair. And I think that's honestly the biggest problem with the show, at least for me, is the whole point of the novels is it is Geralt, Ciri, and Yennefer. Like, it's that family and it's that relationship. Ciri's the main character. It's Ciri. It's not Geralt. It's Ciri's story, I should say. And to hit up on all of that. And in the show, I don't know if it's because it's only 8 episodes. I don't know if it's only 8 episodes because they don't want to do it to 10. If it's $100 million and someone at Netflix is like, we're not giving you $100 million to have people talk in rooms. We need monsters. We need to market it as Henry Cavill being Witcher Superman. I don't know what it is, but you're exactly right that we're not feeling this. There's no weight of this because it's too much go, 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 go. And there's not enough of them actually being together and cultivating those relationships. And it got better this season, no question, but it's still to the point at the end of this season, like, how close really are these characters? And that would have to be from someone that doesn't know what they're supposed to be. And so y'all would be able to answer that, better, especially someone who has only watched the show. And I wonder if it has hit on it as much as I think it should have.
Yeah, I mean, the Geralt and Siri relationship, like that, I can see that they're close. Geralt and Yen, honestly, with last season, I read online that they apparently had interacted more than what we saw on screen. I was like, really? I couldn't tell. And then when I watched it again, there was one throwaway line where it's like, oh, I can't stop seeing you, when they first see each other in the inn before the Dragon Quest. So I guess that's supposed to be a hint that they saw each other throughout the decades. But I only deduced that they saw each other at the, when she tried to chat to Jen and during the Dragon Quest. So I don't even understand why Geralt and Yen like each other so much.
Yeah, that's a debated thing. But I mean, a big thing also is like Geralt, I know, and they kind of hit on this, and it was an earlier episode when Geralt leaves to go speak to Yshtred and at Cintra, and they go to the monoliths, and Ciri's upset because she didn't get to go. And like so many times, like Geralt just leaving, I don't know, maybe I'm just being too harsh on it, but like I said, the crux of everything is everything Geralt does is because Ciri is it. And I just have not bought in that it's that close. I just don't think they've had enough time together with so much else going on. Like I said, I've enjoyed the expansion of Nilfgaard, but anything you expand on that end, or any monster fight you show or whatever, is taking time away from the others. And I don't know. It just didn't really work for me, but maybe I'm just being too harsh on it.
Yeah, I always forget as well, like for the first series or the first season, we didn't have Geralt and Ciri together at all. So in the earlier parts of season 2, you've maybe only had 1 or 2 episodes together. So by the end of this series, they've only had, we've only seen them on screen together, maximum of 8 episodes. So some of the relationship might end up feeling rushed if there's so much action in between and we don't have enough just sitting, having conversations, getting to know each other, even because they are only just getting to know each other. But I know what you mean. I did love the development of Geralt and Ciri. Geralt and Yennefer, is still kind of questionable, especially now they've got this big distrust because of what Yennefer did. So I don't know how that's going to go forward, because he says in the end of the episode, I don't forgive you. But now he just wants her around for Ciri because he knows that she's going to be the best person to teach Ciri. So I'm quite interested to see how that will continue to develop. And then, I mean, my only experience of Yennefer and Ciri is from the game, from Witcher 3. And she's very motherly towards Ciri in Witcher 3. She would do anything for Ciri in Witcher 3. And by the end of this series, she is like that as well. But it is so out of nowhere after wanting to essentially sacrifice her. So yeah, it's a bit, I get what you mean, why you don't really buy it, because it does just seem a bit, it's like within one episode it's just changed her mind.
Well, so much, and you, like, if there's an original sin of the series, it's going to be the fact that they cut out Geralt and Siri in Brokilon. And if you read the short stories, you know what it is. And they cut that out, and it's the biggest question mark, and it still hasn't been answered, and it still just cannot be answered. Like, it's unfathomable that they did it. I still can't believe I've accepted it. But I still, as you bring it up, you're bringing up these old,
I know, I'm sorry.
You tear off these band-aids of it. Because again, like, if you're going to read two things in the short stories. In the second short story, Sword of Destiny, if you want to understand Geralt and Ciri, and that's the first one, Sword of Destiny, and then something more, it kind of goes together. It's the crux of them meeting. It's the crux of Geralt thinking he let Ciri go away and then realizing, oh my God, I messed up, and then gets her back at the end. That's the biggest thing to understand it. And they cut that out, and I just don't understand why. For Geralt and Yennefer, it's the short story A Shard of Ice. It's my favorite short story. It's basically all about them. It's the only one with Ystrid in it. It's amazing. And they didn't adapt it. I don't know really why they didn't, because Ystrid is such a bigger character in the show, and I love it. It's a great actor, it's a great character. Everything is there for them to do it, and they didn't do it. And like, this was the biggest thing about Geralt and Yennefer, about their problems that they had, about how, oh my God, they both know, if you will, they are meant for each other. But going back to what like Bill and Trentmer said, that nothing's going to come of it. They understand that they can't be together. Excuse me. They understand they can't be together. And Geralt realizes he can't give Yen what she wants, and they let go. It's just amazing. So read those to really understand what it's supposed to be. And again, there's so much, I just don't get why that could not have been in the show. They could have done it. It fits with everything they've done. I just don't understand it. And it would be a question that I would ask the showrunner, like, why, not being like, you know, like, why aren't you doing this? I would just genuinely want to know the creative process behind putting in like a grain of truth, which was a great episode and a great short story, but has nothing, absolutely nothing to do with this overarching story. And in the short story, Ciri's not even there in the original one. And so to include that, but not something else, the only thing I could think of is monster fight, because a Shard of Ice doesn't have a monster fight. And something more in the Brokilon and all that, they actually, that one kind of does. That would actually have been cool, because that's a big I can't remember what it was called, Eager, something like that. But it's stuff like that. I just don't get it. But those are the short stories. Read those. Go Google a PDF of Sword of Destiny. They're out there. Like, read it. You will really understand a bit more of why certain things should at least happen, or at least just better characterization.
So it sounds like those stories at this point in the series can't be done, right? Like, we've kind of moved past that in the timeline.
The whole point of A Shard of Ice was Geralt and Yennefer are together at this town. I think it is 𝘕𝘰𝘮𝑗𝑛. I want to say 𝘕𝘰𝘮𝑗𝑛 was in the show, but I don't know if it was in. For some reason, that sticks in my head. It might not have been. It probably doesn't even matter. They're together. Yen basically is cheating on Geralt with Ystrid. Like, they're together, and she's with him. Geralt's like, what the hell? And Yen's like, you don't provide. You're not trying to be with me. You need to give me what I want. She's trying to have him make his move or whatever. Where Geralt knows what he has to do, like say I love you, do all that, but he can't do it, and he says I can't do it. And then he goes to fight Ystrid to have this like mano y mano, like macho fight. And while they're about to fight, or as they're about to fight, they basically, Yen sends these kestrels to them with their answers. And basically she says, you know, bollocks to both of you, I'm out. And Geralt like kind of doesn't smile, but he leaves, and Ystrid's like screaming at him like, hey, stand and fight. Because Ystrid was going to fight him without magic, knowing he was going to die. So Ystrid was literally going to die fighting for his woman. It's very much this toxic.
All right.
Exactly. It's very much this like awesome like comment, if you will, and like even like a toxic masculinity thing of these two that are going to fight for this woman, and the woman's just like, I'm out. And it's very gray, because like I said, Yen isn't like the icon in this. She was cheating on Geralt. Like, she's not treating Geralt well, but Geralt knows, I love this woman, but I can't give her what she wants. And he says it, and that's when they like break up, if you will, and go away. And I think that's the last time they see each other and where the dear friend comes from, if I remember that correctly. And it's just so great. It has some Wild Hunt background to the Queen of Winter, the Winter Queen. And it's I thought they were going to do it when Ystrid came back too. I don't know if they can do that now, because Ystrid and Geralt don't really seem at odds. Like maybe if they were at odds, it could be, but Geralt also didn't know that Yen was alive. So maybe when they're all back together next season, maybe they can do it. I don't think it would work as well because Ystrid's such a bigger character and it's not as much, but you know, they've introduced the Wild Hunt. They can get all that. I don't know. They probably won't do it, but it's just one of my favorites.
That would be cool to see, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I don't know how it's like in the books. I feel like Geralt and Yen have a bit of a toxic relationship in the show, especially towards the end, where I'm wondering, like, why in the world would Geralt even let this woman be around Ciri? I would be like, yeah, I mean, okay, I'm not a violent person, so I probably wouldn't kill her, but my mind would say to kill her, but I would definitely be like, I've never seen your face again in my life, Yennefer.
Yeah, I mean, a big thing was Triss goes to Pier Morgan to help Ciri. Triss realizes, holy shit. Oh, sorry, I don't know if I can cuss or not. She realizes, oh man, like we need more help. We need someone more powerful. And they're like, Yen, you got to do Yen. You got to get Yen. And Geralt's like, oh man. And that's when he writes this letter, the dear friend, which of course, Yen's like, oh, dear friend, is that what we are? And so they have this antagonistic, but that's what it comes back. And then, you know, they go to 𝘕𝘰𝘵𝘦 and then Yen starts training. And then you get that relationship. And so, yeah, you're right. You know, the whole, oh, Team Triss, Team Yen and all that. It's okay to be like, how about just none? How about Yen is very protective of Ciri? She's very motherly to Ciri, and you have that relationship. And, you know, I don't want to say it's like Geralt has divorced dad energy, but it could just be one of those, hey, they've got this, you know, it's a family, but it's not husband and wife loving, because yes, they are. Yen is beyond flawed. Trauma. You want to discuss trauma? I know you mentioned, you said your minor was psychology.
Major.
So, your major? Okay, there you go. I mean, you're talking about trauma, very traumatic. Like the stuff that they put in the show is what they happened in the books with like the suicide attempts and just the abuse as a child and giving away and the hunchback and all that. You know, Geralt's a 100-year-old monster slayer and this daughter. So yeah, it's not an easy, hey, look, everything's great, we're all, you know, together. And yeah, it's okay to be, how about team, everybody just kind of help Ciri.
Just co-parent.
There you go.
So what you said about Yen and her characterization, that's why, actually, contrary to what a lot of people said, a lot of people were upset about, I didn't mind the fact that she lost her magic instead of being blinded at sudden, and that she was desperate. And desperate enough to betray this unknown girl, because Yen, like you said, she went through crazy trauma. She was not loved as a child. She was abused as a child. For someone to not receive love from their parental figures, it's extremely destructive. It's very hard to regain yourself after that. And she never had a sense of self. And, you know, Ystrid told her that way back when, you know, they were in 𝘬𝘪𝘵𝘬. He said, you know, power is not going to make you happy. Like nothing's going to make you happy. And she kept using, the only thing that really went for her in her life was her power. That was kind of the only way that she felt like she was in control, because she had been out of control her whole life as a piglet and, you know, in 𝘬𝘪𝘵𝘬 as a student, and she thought that power would make her happy, which it didn't. So at some point this part I also didn't get, she somehow thought being a parent would make her happy, which I did not understand her motivation for that at all. But in any case, I understood that when her power was stripped away from her, her sense of identity was gone and she didn't know what to do with herself. So that I understood. And I understood why it would make her so desperate. But the switching back and forth, that didn't work. Anyway, so getting back into the story and what happened. So Ciri is, you know, killing all these witchers in their beds, which I saw someone put this line on Reddit where at some point Bessemer said, you know, none of us have ever died in our beds.
Yeah.
So,
well, first time for everything.
Yeah. So she kills everyone, and you know, when Geralt comes in, he's like, "Oh, you know, what happened? And how did you get away?" And she was like, "Oh, I just screamed." And so basically, Geralt realizes, no, this is not actually Ciri. I was a bit confused by that. Like, what was Voleth Meir's plan? Like, was she planning on pretending to be Ciri? And then like, I didn't get anything about her plan. So I know, we learn over time, Geralt says, okay, Voleth Meir is a demon from another realm and she wanted to go back to her home, but I don't understand what. Okay, so she feeds on pain. So that's why she wanted, maybe she fed on the pain of the elves being killed. I didn't understand anything about Voleth Meir's plan. Like she said, she wanted the elves to get together with Nilfgaard, and then she wanted Ciri brought to the Black Door, but then what? Like, how was that going to get her home? Like, I feel like if she would have wanted to go home, she could have said, okay, so she felt Ciri had the power. Ciri, cast a spell and take me home. I didn't understand how she thought she was going to get what she wanted. But did you understand?
I'm just going to nod. No, I mean, it was through the monolith, right? Like the Witcher, the monolith in Pier Morgan, isn't that how she got back?
Yeah, so I think Maya, I don't know. So Geralt says at the end that he thinks that the monoliths are actually portals to these other spheres, and the one in Pier Morgan, coincidentally, is the one where Voleth Meir comes from. And I can't remember how, like I haven't watched episode 7 in a wee while, so I can't remember how Voleth Meir ends up with Ciri at Pier Morgan. It must happen at the end of episode 7. But yeah, I understand the confusion, because I don't understand why she then went on the killing spree, like unless she's just an evil demon and that's her thing. Go off. So, because she obviously opens the monolith, and then she doesn't go through it until Yen starts like saying some sort of incantation, and then she comes out of Ciri and they all go through the portal. Yeah, I'm just as confused, but because it's weird for me, because I watched this episode today just to remind myself, and I really enjoyed the whole thing, but there was moments where I was like, why is this happening? What's the amber got to do with it? Why is Jaskier under the table? Like all these questions.
Okay, all right. That's I'll just get that. I'll go to that part right there. Jaskier, oh God. Okay. I know I'm trying to gather myself, because like I said, you try to be as positive as possible. Jaskier in this scene, everything involving him, everything with the amber, the way it goes down is what I absolutely despise of all media post Marvel, post MCU, where it's we got to have comedy, we got to have a quip in there, we got to have comic relief, we got to have somebody in there, and it's like, you do realize that this is Ciri, the crux of this story, in Pier Morgan, with Geralt, with Vesemir, with all the Witchers, and she's literally killing them, and they're having to decide whether to kill her. Vesemir is trying to kill her, while Geralt is trying to hold her off and hold the Witchers off. This is an incredibly tense moment. You don't need comic relief. It's okay. If people aren't interested in it, they're not going to be interested in it. But you don't need to jangle the keys to keep. Anyway, that's my number one thing about Netflix. Does not trust this audience to have a straightforward story that, even now they have the big monster fight, culmination of everything. They throw this in there. I'm getting it because it drives me crazy. I hate it. Please, for the love of God, I cannot wait. And so I'm not going to bash on Marvel because I don't want to get all in that. But I absolutely hate that these are the lessons that was taken from it. And I hated the scene. I want to pay somebody to edit Jaskier out of this scene so I could like watch it again. And I'm sorry for going on that rant.
And I have more to add. So the first time he walks in, he's like, "Oh, Geralt, I have this for you." So okay, that's the comic relief part, right? But then he just stops.
He just
and then
stops.
Like 20 minutes later, he decides, "Oh, now I have to deliver the stone," and he crawls under the table. I great danger to himself to deliver the stone. Like, why couldn't you just?
Yen tells him how important it is to get this to Geralt, right? Like, it's so important, and he has their attention, and he's just like, "Oh, you look busy." I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" Like, it's one thing if he goes in there and it's in the middle of a fight and he can't get Geralt's attention, but literally has it. And Yen is just like, "Yes, get him this. This is the most important thing." And he just said, "Oh my God, okay, I'm done."
I didn't get why it was that important either. Okay, so my other complaint with stuff in this episode, everything was on the nose. She tells him the stone is to right the wrongs. Obviously, it's referring to her because she did a lot of wrong things. And then then there's this whole part where Geralt realizes that Voleth Meir feeds on hate. Now, I happen to be a huge sucker for the theme of love is the key to everything. It's my personal philosophy in life. I really think that's the key to world peace, blah, blah, blah. But to say it outright, have a character say that is so cheesy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, we're smart. Like, okay, I've been reading, Robert McKee has a book called Story. I love that. It's all about how to write stories. And he says that when human beings experience life, nothing is presented to us black and white. We have to look at the events that happen around us. We have to make the connections, and we derive the messages and the meanings. And when a story is well written on screen or in book, the audience does the same thing. It's as though we're living life. We see a series of events and we make the connections. And he says the audience is smart enough to pull the meaning from what you're giving it. And with what happened in this episode, with the characters just saying the message, that was just saying, okay, like, we're done. We're not smart enough to get what's going on. Like, we know, you don't have to tell us. We figured it out.
Yeah, no,
so
a big,
go on ahead.
I was gonna say, I spent a couple of years actually trying to write for TV and like doing that like full time, if you will, like all these scripts. And early on, especially when you give it to someone, because I knew somebody that was involved with like an NBC show, and she, you know, gratefully gave me a bunch of like really good notes. Like the number one thing always is too much exposition, too on the nose. Like you have to deliver it in certain ways. And so you're right. Whenever you see this in these high budget shows, it just really sticks out to me that it's in there like that, because you're right. It's so on the nose and it's so just like beats you over the head of it, that I just kind of wonder how it does kind of slip in and can kind of like distract in that way. But it might just be for us kind of like nerds that might know that. Maybe other people didn't realize it as much.
And that in comparison to we're kind of like second guessing what Voleth Meir's entire intentions are, or what her plan is. We need that a little bit clearer, I think. I need that bashed over my head a bit more.
Maybe.
Compared to like the obvious things that you're saying.
So actually, I think what you're saying is only confusing things more, because is her plan to go home through magicking Ciri, or is her plan to feed on hate and get strong enough to go home herself? Like, that part is not quite clear.
I mean, I guess they basically said it was her way to get back. And then to open up this can of worms, I didn't get this, but I guess I kept seeing enough things about it. I guess she's part of the Wild Hunt, because when they go back, and I didn't put this together, I guess you can say she apparitiates or whatever it is into that rider. And I didn't put together that was her. I thought that was just one of the spectral riders coming into form before us, like a cool shot. But I guess that was her taking her place with the Wild Hunt.
Yeah, that's what I picked up as well. Like she then transformed back into one of them. So is she like the leader of the Wild Hunt, or? Well,
I mean, maybe in the show, because the leader of the Wild Hunt is the guy that was there talking, you know, starry-eyed daughter of chaos.
I didn't know if it was her talking or if it was someone else talking.
No, that should be the guy, the main guy, that we could only see part of his face. I think the helmet covered like the top part of his face. That should be that guy who they didn't name yet. But yeah, that would be the Wild Hunt, which was my favorite part of the episode. So to be positive, that part right there was one of those. Did you ever see the movie Jurassic World?
No, but my husband did, and he told me, he was like, "Oh, look, the bull's shaking, the bull's shaking." He's like, "There's gonna be a T-Rex coming out of the." Right?
Okay, well, see, that was Jurassic Park.
Oh, Park, sorry.
What I meant, Jurassic World was the one when they rebooted it that came out, and it's one of those. I love all the Jurassic Park movies. They came out when I was like 9, and I love dinosaurs. But Jurassic World was not a good movie, and you're sitting there at the end, and you're just like, "Oh man, this just isn't very good." But at the end has this like unbelievable dinosaur fight of like the T-Rexes and the raptors, and then this other thing comes out of the ocean, and in that moment you're just like, holy smoke, this is great. And it kind of covers up all these things that you were just complaining about. Well, that was me with the Wild Hunt, when they start talking about starry-eyed daughter of chaos, join us, and I'm like, okay, now you're getting me going, and I can forgive all that other stuff I just complained about.
That's nice. Okay, so I have another thing to talk about, which relates actually to another thing that fans I know have been very, very upset about, Eskel's death. So here's what I thought the purpose of Eskel's death was. and how I thought it was going to play out in this episode and how I was disappointed. So I thought, I didn't know 𝘴𝘵𝘺. I didn't know that, apparently he's not such a big character in the books, but more in the movies. Anyway, so they killed him off. So I thought that the purpose of that was to show us that Geralt is willing to kill even those he loves to protect others, right? Because he killed 𝘴𝘵𝘺, even though he was his really good friend, to protect 𝘴𝘵𝘺. So I thought, and then right afterwards, Ciri goes and talks, and sorry, that comes right after the whole part where Ciri talks to him in the forest after episode 1, the Ring of Truth, and she feels like a monster, and Rowena tells her he'll come for you too, you're also a monster. And she asks him, she's like, oh, sometimes I feel like I want to burn the whole world down. And, I thought that was a theme that they were building up nicely, that Ciri feels like she does things out of her control, she destroys things, she feels bad about it. And I thought it was building up to a point where she fears that Geralt will kill her because of things that she does. And I thought that was the purpose of killing 𝘴𝘵𝘺, even though Geralt loves 𝘴𝘵𝘺, he will do it to do the right thing. So I thought when we came to this episode that Geralt would be like, hey, Ciri is possessed, she's gonna kill everyone, I have no choice, I have to kill her. I thought that was the purpose of killing 𝘴𝘵𝘺 way back in the beginning. And 𝘴𝘵𝘺 says that instead, and Geralt's like, no, we have to, try to get her out. Okay, willing to accept it. He's her dad. He's gonna try to, get her out. Somehow, I didn't really get his plan. Just like talk to her, whatever. But then 𝘴𝘵𝘺, so he's like, trust me, let's try to get her out. And there's this fight, and she just kills more and more witchers with the creatures coming out. And then 𝘴𝘵𝘺 finally does, stab her. But first of all, he doesn't even stab her mortally. Like, why doesn't he stab her in the throat? Why does he stab her in the side? I didn't get that. Like, he's not dumb. He's an experienced fighter. And then, he feels bad about it like 5 seconds later. To me, it was inconsistent. It was like, 𝘴𝘵𝘺 should have been right away. We have to do the right thing. We have to kill her. We have to, preserve the rest of everyone's lives. And then I just felt like he was also flip-flopping back and forth. Like, oh, I feel bad. I'm sorry. And then when he felt sorry, he wasn't even that dramatic about it either. So I just felt like there wasn't enough consistency, and there wasn't like oomph or drama. Like, it was trying to be dramatic, but it just didn't succeed.
Yeah, there was a lot of back and forth with Vesemir in this episode, and it's exactly what you're saying. It's the comparisons to 𝘴𝘵𝘺, and he says to Geralt, I was traumatized when you had to kill 𝘴𝘵𝘺, but it was the right thing to do, and I understood why you did it. And that's what he wants to do with Ciri as well. But I sort of feel like, Geralt, are you gonna listen to this, because this is exactly what you've done to Vesemir, and now you're expecting him to, listen to you in this situation. And then throughout the scene, obviously Vesemir sees essentially his children, his Witcher kids getting like brutally mashed up by these monsters, and it's not pretty. Like, it's not like it's not a pretty death. Like, they're getting their heads smashed in. It's awful. It's really, really bad. And he obviously finds it more increasingly difficult to support Ciri through that. But there is a lot of back and forth, isn't there? So at one point he agrees to Geralt, then he helps him with the 𝘕𝘺𝘺, then he goes and stabs her, then he comes back, and it's like, yeah, it must be, I mean, nobody will ever know what it's like to be in that situation, I guess, but I know what you mean. It's not consistent. And to be fair, it was one of my, like, his sort of relationship with Geralt in this episode was one of my favorite things to watch, because I like seeing the dynamic between them change, and them trying to convince each other, and I like die a little bit inside every time he calls him Wolf. But yeah, I get what you mean.
Yeah, I guess maybe if we would have had it from his perspective, maybe we could have seen it, because yeah, it did kind of seem whatever was needed at the time Vesemir might have done.
Mm-hmm.
But I do like Mindy, that you brought up the whole thing of like 𝘴𝘵𝘺 and him having to do that, and maybe eventually having to kill Ciri, or having to like learn from it in that way. But I just think with 𝘴𝘵𝘺, the whole thing was it just wasn't enough time. We were just told how close they were. We didn't actually get to see it. And so like when that, because we actually just recorded that episode yesterday, and it came out today. So that one's kind of fresh on our minds.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was just something there that I think also there just wasn't enough time to do it. Like maybe if they had an episode fully, and then from the first time we see 𝘴𝘵𝘺, he's infected or whatever you want to call it. Mm-hmm. So he's never really what he's supposed to be. He's a jerk from the beginning. And so when he died, it's just like, oh, okay, the jerk is dead. Who cares, And then he's supposed to be so tight. But yeah, the Vesemir Ciri was another, as I'm watching it, when he stabbed her, I was all over this whole scene just had me like all over the place. It was
Yeah.
very, very like technically it was amazing. And like you said, we get all the signs, like everyone's doing 𝘤𝘪𝘵 and everything's flying around. Like that part visually was amazing though.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I think visually this episode, and there was another episode where they're at 𝘬𝘪𝘵 and they do a fight scene there. Like insane. Like I was literally watching, my eyes are like I just couldn't believe it. Like it looks incredible. And yeah, I think especially even like the Witchers, like I love the effect they have when they take their elixir and they get the black eyes and like their whole face goes pale. I think that looks really great, especially when all of them suddenly turn around to Jaskier. I thought that was a really good moment where you see all of them. And yeah, I mean the effects are stunning.
Yeah, that's something I always say, I guess we're kind of, as experienced movie watchers, we're kind of spoiled, but like it takes a lot to build the world and, just everything, the costumes and the wigs and the makeup and the prosthetics and the fight choreography. Like it's a ton of effort to make this very entertaining content. So always going to show appreciation for that. So let's see, what else? Okay, so there were a couple of lines. What I did find interesting and I thought was well done was that Ciri, when she was possessed by Voleth Meir, her reactions were kind of dual. They were, she was speaking for Voleth Meir, but there was a sense where you could also see that the real Ciri was reacting. I thought that was well done. It was kind of like a balance, and Ciri showed, like the actress Freya showed that with like these slight facial expressions. I thought that was good. And like one of the throwaways where I thought like it was both Voleth Meir and Ciri was Voleth Meir standing, this is when Geralt first comes across her and he's like, oh, you don't want to escape. She's standing in front of the tree, the medallion tree, and she says, so many people were devoured by this hellish continent. So you can tell that's Voleth Meir speaking like, I want to go home, like I don't like this continent. And do you want to say something?
Oh, me?
Yeah. No,
oh,
okay.
no, I'm sorry.
Okay. And then another question I had was at that scene, Geralt says, what do you want? Okay, let's just release her and then you can have me. So I didn't quite understand what he meant by that. Like, you can kill me and then my death will accomplish what? Or you can possess me, which also I don't see how possessing Geralt is a good outcome because he can also be used as a, vicious tool. I don't know. Did you make sense of that?
I think it's just
yeah.
self-sacrifice. Just I can handle it more than her. She's not as capable. I think it's just kind of something like that.
Yeah, I think he was off definitely just, I think at this point they don't realize that she wants Ciri specifically because she'll be able to get home, and he's offered himself as a vessel, which he obviously, yeah, what you said, Brett, he thinks that he'll handle it better than Ciri can.
Yeah, because they know that she's obviously special at this time, like the elder blood and all that, but I guess they still don't know exactly what it is. And Geralt might just be saying, as powerful as he is, he knows she is ultimately able or more able to be powerful, I guess. In that, I guess it has the ability to be more powerful.
Yeah, and also maybe more easily manipulated. So it's like a double-edged sword.
Maybe he was counting on the other witches to kill him, and like he was like, okay, I'm fine being dead. Let Ciri be free, and then they'll kill me. I don't know.
Yeah.
Another thing that I thought was confusing / interesting was, so Voleth Meir is, supposed to be telling that, like, whoever she talks to, like, their deepest desires and their fears, right? Especially when she talks to, like, Fringilla and Francesca earlier. So at some point she tells Geralt when regarding Vesemir, she tells him, what's she telling him? She says, oh, show him you don't need him anymore. But I didn't think that was an issue that Geralt had. Like it was never certainly brought up in the show. Like, everything else she told Francesca and Fringilla were stuff that was, it was in their hearts. But Geralt has never stated any sort of conflict with Vesemir where he feels the need to be, independent of him. Just my issues.
Yeah. I think that's fair. That's kind of, yeah. And I guess that just goes back to the crux of, I guess it just wasn't fully fleshed out, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it comes down to, like we said earlier, like maybe not having enough time to fully understand what the characters are going through. Is 8 episodes enough? I mean, maybe I'm being greedy. I would like 10 episodes. It might make it a bit easier to get a bit more into these kind of relationships and wants and desires between each of the characters.
Well, yeah, because like I said, they're very ambitious with what they're doing, which is great. But to do everything they're wanting to do in eight episodes, it's got to be pretty darn tight and special. And yeah, like when you cut certain things out, you have to put in others. And some of the stuff that we needed, I think, to hit these parts, you know, to make this action and conflict really land, they just weren't in there. Just wasn't enough of it.
Yeah. One line there's another line that Voleth Meir says that actually does, I think, reflect nicely about the struggles that, like, Geralt's inner struggles when Ciri reunites with her parents. So, you know, in the dream, she's reuniting with her parents, which is obviously, as someone who grew up without parents, is probably very, very meaningful for her. And Voleth Meir, meanwhile, is telling Geralt, you know, she doesn't want to be here. She isn't yours, which I do think does reflect Geralt's unspoken fear that he isn't doing a good job as a father and he isn't providing what he needs to her. So that line was, I thought, really good and well placed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I liked that when we get to see the parents as well. It's a good chance for them to give us a good look at Ciri's dad's face, so we remember him. Because if we didn't have that, I guess we wouldn't. The big reveal at the end would not be as impactful. Yeah,
they had to insert that in now.
Yeah.
Did you guys notice that only 𝘴𝘵𝘰𝘬𝘴 faded away? Because I didn't.
Yeah. So like, so everybody in the scene fades away, don't they? Like everybody who's dead. But then I didn't notice it the first time I watched it, and then I'm sure I think Brett and I spoke to somebody and they mentioned it, and I was like, oh yeah, he's the only one that doesn't like disintegrate, which is another little Easter egg for you.
Yeah, that was pretty cool to put in. That was very well done. I did not notice it either, but yeah, it was well done.
Yeah, visually also I thought it was fantastic. I personally actually was so happy to see 𝘴𝘰𝘺. 𝘴𝘰𝘺 was one of my favorite characters. I was so sad when he died.
Yeah, and again, just to throw that in there, he doesn't die in the books. Like that doesn't happen. That was another thing that's just why? I don't, really weird. The whole the Doppler thing with 𝘴𝘰𝘺 was really weird on a number of levels, but yeah, he actually comes back on The Witcher 3 under a different name, but
does he come back in the books?
I do not believe that he does. No, I think he's gone. I think that's pretty much it. Like he's in the short stories, and then I don't think he's ever in anything else again.
Does he get killed, or he just
he just disappears and they never say. And that's why I think The Witcher 3 brought him back. He's from Skellige, so they threw him in Skellige. And yeah, it's just one of those. I don't think Sapkowski just cared enough to reveal what happened to him, because I don't even think he's ever mentioned again. Like, I don't think Ciri ever talks about him. Maybe it could be one of those one-time things, but he's there. He's big for like raising her, and then he just kind of goes away.
Okay, I guess killing him off then.
Well, and that's the thing. And that's exactly it. Like, killing him is perfectly fine because he doesn't ever really come back. It's just one of those. Oh, I think everyone just enjoyed him, like you said, enjoyed his character, enjoyed the actor portraying him.
I thought he was one of the first people, the only people who was like truly good. He hadn't done anything terrible that we know of, at least.
And he also seemed to really care for Ciri, which we're going to find out, or as we see here. You know, Ciri's like the ultimate MacGuffin for everybody else. Everybody wants to, get her and use her. And somebody that literally raised her from a baby. It was nice to see that. And then, very unfortunate for him to get Dopplerized or whatever it was. I don't remember exactly how they killed him. Or they took his like soul. I don't remember. Something like that.
He knifed him.
Oh, that's right.
Doppler knifed him.
The Doppler knifed him. That's right.
But, it was interesting because even in her dream state, Ciri did ask 𝘴𝘰𝘺, can you tell me about my bloodline? Why didn't anyone tell me? So she's kind of like half present, half sentient in her dream. And that's kind of like what this episode is trying to do, which again, I don't know if I think it's the greatest strategy, but Geralt kept, at some point they stopped fighting right after he stabs her, and they're all trying to like, Ciri, come back home. And to me, it felt a little off, like it felt a little magic-y. Okay, I know it's a fantasy series, but like I felt wishful thinking. It's more of the like love will solve everything. And like, yes, I think that's a great thing, but it was too, it didn't feel earned that. Sorry. No. just
You okay?
Yeah, sorry. I guess it's acid reflux. I don't know. Hold on. We have to cut this out.
You're good.
My voice comes back.
I'll take a drink as well.
I've been drinking nonstop. Otherwise, my throat will just seize up. Yeah, I've been having to mute it.
Yeah, it's weird. Never had it before. So anyway, yeah, to me, it just felt a little bit like, okay, let's make a wish and our wish will come true. Let's just call for Ciri and she'll come back to us. It's a nice theme of like, okay, where does her love lie? And like, will love conquer it all? But it just seemed too easy that after all this fighting, like that's what happened. And yeah, I get that they had to first get rid of the basilisks before they could, sit there and try to get her back to them. But it also felt like they should have done that before. I don't know.
Did it
but eventually
maybe,
it does. Sorry, go
I was
on.
gonna say, was it maybe like Ciri kind of choosing to go back? Like her choosing to like get out of that world? Maybe. Like when you're talking about like when like the vision, right? When she's like leaving?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe, assuming we're talking about the same one. I thought it was more or less Ciri kind of letting go of that world and maybe going back to the world that's real that she kind of has to do. Maybe like almost a sense of duty.
Yeah.
Like, this one is gone. It feels good. It's great. It's almost in a way the relationship I kind of have with nostalgia that it is. I love going back to old things and remembering old things, but it's bad for me because it's gone. It's not real anymore. Like memories aren't real. The world 10 years ago that we lived in, 20 years ago, whatever it was, it's a fantasy world. And if you live in that instead of the present and preparing for the future, then you're never gonna, like, to me, in a way, even be content, much less happy or something like that. And so maybe in that right there, again, maybe I'm just putting my own or projecting my own thing onto it. It was her finally realizing, okay, this is it. This is gone. I have a family now. I have people I care about. I need to go back and help them or, at least do something in that world.
Yeah, it's like really hitting on like what to me is like one of the main themes of The Witcher, which is sort of family, not necessarily by blood, but like the family that you choose and family that you end up with. And this is her choosing to leave her, well, even though she knows it's not real at this point, but she's got this dream world with her real parents for the first time probably ever, because I think they died. What she thinks that they died when she was very young, so she's probably never had a moment like this with them. But she can hear Geralt and 𝘴𝘰𝘪 and everyone else, inviting her back and telling her that she's needed, and she probably feels good that she feels needed by a group of people who she considers to be a family now. And then I like when she gets back and she's sort of like giving Lambert a little bit of stick. And we spoke about this yesterday, but we didn't really like Lambert that much. But then by the end of it, I do kind of like the relationship that he and Ciri have got together, sort of like a big brother, little sister type thing. But yeah, I think that's like one of my favorite themes in the whole thing is like the family you choose.
Yeah, and Geralt says it, speaking of, it's probably also too on the nose, but he says explicitly, the parents are like, you belong with us. And he says, in the real world, he's like, no, you belong with us. It's not perfect, but it's real. And again, it's very like we could figure that out. Like, you don't have to tell us, but okay, it wasn't terrible. So yeah, so Ciri awakens, and then they have this whole dramatic ending where, again, I didn't quite get how this all happened, but Geralt says, we need to send Voleth Meir back home because he somehow figured out that, she needs to go back to her dimension. Okay, I guess he's clever. And then he's like, you can do this, and I have faith in you. I didn't really Ciri is like very untrained, very uncontrolled. I didn't know why he had this faith that Ciri could, with through sheer force of will, could somehow figure out how to send Voleth Meir back home. But somehow that does happen, and Yen at that point has decided, she's like, so Geralt before, he says that Voleth Meir is not leaving Ciri because her house burned down and she needs a vessel, right? So he's like, okay, we'll never get her out until she has another vessel. So Yennefer at this point decides, sign me up, I'm going to sacrifice myself. And she slits her wrists, which I thought that was good parallelism, because it's last time she slit her wrist was when she wanted to die because she felt completely, out of control. So this time it's kind of nice parallelism. This is her way of atoning for what she did. I felt it was, again, too fast, too soon, but I get the desire, that the need to do that. And then, yeah, then it's a little convoluted. The embers go into Yen. So it kind of seems as though Voleth Meir is in Yen, and then Geralt's like, oh, portal is out of here. Ciri somehow remembers the words, which I think is the same words, I guess, to make a portal. They portal magically into the right dimension. She rejoins the hunt there, and they tell her, one of the leader of the hunt says, come join us. And she somehow also manages to get them back.
Yeah.
I don't know how Ciri somehow has these powers that she doesn't know about and can't control, but somehow are very specifically tuned to those worlds, but whatever.
Yeah, my confusion with this bit was, so Geralt says that Voleth Meir is never going to leave Ciri because she needs a vessel. I don't get how then Yennefer sacrificing herself, like killing herself essentially, or trying to, would make Voleth Meir automatically go into her. I know that she started saying some kind of elder speech then, but I didn't get, because she smashes the potion that she made, and I didn't get if that was her. Is that how it's used? I was like, is that how it's used? Is that how they do them?
Smash it.
Smash it. Because I didn't get what made Voleth Meir go from Ciri into Yennefer. But then again, maybe it's that what you were saying, Mindy, that it's like the power of love and sacrifice. And it kind of reminded me of like Harry Potter, when like his mum saves Harry in the very, very beginning, and Harry can't be harmed because of the love of his mother. Maybe it was like that. I'm not sure. I'm just speculating, but that was one thing I wasn't clear on, and maybe something I might like Google later and try and find some fan theories on.
So I don't know. I'm totally with you, because why would she do that? So it's pretty clear, like the Emperor's going into Yen, and then when they're in the red world, the Emperor's leave Yen. So that part I think was well shown, but why I get, and also she tells Yen, says later, oh, my magic came back to me. And okay, we can get that in terms of like a mortal world, her magic will come back, but who's returning her magic? Is there like a power that's giving the magic back that says, Yennefer, you did a good thing. You deserve to have your magic back. Who gave her magic back? Voleth Meir gave her magic back. Did she even have the power to do that? And like Voleth Meir suddenly recognizes and appreciates sacrifice, and she was rewarding Yen. Like, I didn't get it.
Yeah, who's in charge? Who dishes out the magic?
And again, it's just the magic is that connection to chaos, going back to the conjunction. There isn't like, well, I take it back. They actually, in the show, they did have those eels at 𝘬𝘪𝘵𝘬.
Oh yeah.
That like powers it. That's a new thing also. So I guess that is a good question. I guess I can't really answer what that is, but I don't know. Again, it could just be a self-realization thing that y'all said, that she earned it back, or she reconnected through the power of helping people. And I don't know, you're right, I guess. I don't know.
No, I'm with you.
Yeah, the whole her not having magic the entire season was like very, very interesting. I did not think it was going to go on as long as it did. When it first happened, I was like, okay, she'll get it back. Well, I was like, well, she has to get it back to train Ciri. And the way they did it is she ended up training Ciri without having it, and just telling her the words and all that, which again is an interesting decision. So I guess she got it back through sheer force of will.
I don't know. It seems like it's a reward for her sacrificing herself, but in that case, who's the power that's giving it back to her? It's kind of like in a world where let's say a world we live in, like with God, right? So it's a normal thing for a movie to say, oh, God gave her back the power, but there's no such thing in this world. Like, so it's just curious. But anyway, so now at the end of, I don't know if you guys noticed, so when Yennefer at the end of this battle, she goes around healing everyone, she somehow also has more makeup on than before.
Oh, really?
Pretty clear to me that it's like, I don't know, another day of filming or something. Yes, she looks more sparkly than before. Anyway, so now, he and Geralt and Vesemir have this conversation while Vesemir is removing medallions from the dead witchers, and Geralt says, we need to keep moving. Unclear again where he's going to move to, but his motivation is clear. He says, everybody wants her. The mages want her, the royals want her. We have to somehow, I guess, hide. And that leads into the conclusion of this episode with showing us everybody who wants Ciri. And we have Tissaia meeting with the the monarchy and saying, you know, she's really powerful, and Redania, the king 𝘧𝘵𝘺 wants to marry her, and then he'll have a claim to Cintra, and they'll control us all. So they decide we're gonna put a bounty on the girl, and then they have to say and anyone who's gonna help her, which I thought was great because it sets 𝘴𝘰 up to be adversarial against Yen, because presumably Yen now is going to you know, be on their team. So having 𝘴𝘰, who's Yen, you know, Yen is her favorite student, going to be against Yen. I think it's setting it up to be some nice drama. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, I agree. I did notice that, because at that point I wasn't sure if 𝘴𝘰 realized that Yennefer would be with Ciri. I know she mentions that she's at Kaer Morhen, but I don't know if she knows that Yen is at Kaer Morhen. And this is one of my favorite things about Witcher is like all the parallel relationships. So like Yennefer is going to become to Ciri what 𝘴𝘰 was to herself. You've got the same sort of thing with Geralt and Siri, 𝘱𝘰𝘪 and Geralt. But yeah, this particular scene, obviously they put the bounty out on her. We get introduced to a couple of new well, we've met most of them before, but Maeve was one that you get introduced to. I'm not really familiar with who she is. I don't think she's in the game. But she seems pretty cool. I quite like her. But other than that, yeah, the main point from this was obviously 𝘴𝘰 going up against Yen, which would be a very interesting scene.
Yeah, Maeve is the only game she comes into is Thronebreaker.
Oh, really?
And then her sad sack sons, one of them makes an appearance in the DLC of The Witcher 3. But yeah, that was interesting here is, yeah, the Redania is kind of like out of this little group, aren't they?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was wondering that also, like, why are they, it could be that they meant to communicate it, but they didn't get a chance to, because they weren't, Redania, 𝘧𝘵𝘺 was with the mages when they had the whole ceremony in episode 3. So somehow between then and now, where, you know, Redania is shown to be, we see, the audience sees that Redania wants to take over the continent, but the other mages, we haven't seen them know that. So it's kind of like, I guess what's supposed to have happened in between, and you know, where they didn't really show us that, right, the other kingdoms are fearful of Redania.
Yeah, because Redania is supposed to be where Oxenfurt is. Like Oxenfurt's supposed to be in Redania, but they don't ever say that when they're in Oxenfurt this season. And in one of the scenes, I'm pretty sure some of the guards, like sigils, have the lilies of Temeria. And I don't know if I'm just looking too much into that, or if I missed something or whatever, because like something like that should kind of be a big deal, what these kingdoms are. And like the whole point of the Northern Realms are they're united. They have to unite against Nilfgaard, because if they were to go one-on-one, it would be just out of it. Like that's the whole point of it. Mm-hmm. And so this is another, like, just a change that they're doing, because Dijkstra is in the books. He's a spy master. Redania is there, 𝘱𝘰𝘺. But they try to wed, or they want to wed Ciri to this, I think it was 𝘴𝑵𝘺 like a very minor one, and someone else. And so they're really kind of making that play up. I'm guessing it's just to make Dijkstra maybe a little bit bigger, or make Redania kind of this threat, or have some kind of infighting amongst the Northern Realms. I don't know, because it's just weird that they excluded them there. And because, yeah, they're going to marry, they want her to marry. Wait, did I get this confused? Did they want her to marry Foltest, or am I getting that wrong?
It sounds as though 𝘱𝘰𝘺 wants to marry.
Yeah, maybe I'm actually okay now. Again, the sickness and being in this room is kind of throwing me. Maybe it was in the books they wanted her to marry Foltest. That's exactly, that's what, right, yeah. I think that's it. I think they want her to marry Foltest at this point in the books. It's later on they want her to marry this guy from 𝘴𝑵𝘺. That's right. Because yeah, that's the change in what it is. Yeah, so that's another interesting thing, because again, because Ciri Cintra, Foltest is, you know, it's kind of on that border there, Temeria. And so that was kind of a change up there also. But it's setting the stage that could be really good, you know, this political intrigue and all of this, whether it be the mages and Yen and then the Northern Realms and all that. It's introducing a lot though, and we've talked about how it's only 8 episodes and how I feel it's still kind of cramped and rushed, and nothing was really wound up this season, right? Like no storyline. I guess the only one you could say would be the Voleth Meir one, but she's gonna come back, right? And they didn't wind up Fringilla's and Francesca's. Like I don't know. So it seems like they're opening up a lot more pathways or whatever, more branching out, I should say. So again, I'm reserving judgment. It's just the ambition is there. I hope they can bring it all in.
No, I agree. I think these last few scenes where we get to see where each of the areas is at, and their stories are kind of like wound up in a way, but it sort of ends where they're all deciding that they need Ciri, or they want to kill Ciri, or they need Ciri to save them, or they need to get Ciri. And yeah, I think like I forgot until this point how many different groups of characters are at play here. And you've got like 𝘴𝘰𝘃 and the Brotherhood, the elves, Redania, Nilfgaard, and then Rience, who I'm still kind of confused by because he's with this woman, Lydia, and they're referring to this person. We get to just see the back of this person. She refers to him as my lord. I personally don't know who that is. Brett might have an idea.
Ooh, oh yeah.
Do you think should I have an idea?
I mean, maybe. I don't know. Mindy, do you know who it is?
Unfortunately, I was spoiled. I do know who it is.
Okay. Like Lucy, you're gonna get spoiled. I'll tell you. I'll tell you off. If there was any way that you could hold off on it, it would be great, because what they're setting up for is basically kind of their own red wedding. Like there's no question, like it's that part kind of thing. But yeah, you're gonna have to know, because it's gonna get spoiled eventually. I'm probably gonna accidentally spoil it during an episode of what it is. So, but I do love. I'm glad you mentioned that because I mentioned earlier about how Ciri's this MacGuffin for everybody. That's also a crux of her character, is everybody. And at this point in the story, every single person wants Ciri, but only Geralt, and maybe you can even somewhat say Yen now, or maybe even the Witchers, want Ciri to protect her and for her. Everybody else wants her, but they want her for her blood. Some, as we see, are going to want her, or you see the Northern Realms, or they want her for her literal uterus. They just want what can come out of her. And that's going to be the biggest thing. And it's going to be a big crux of her character again, that everybody wants you, but nobody cares about you. They want to use you. And that's going to just play into a lot. So it's great that they're setting that stage here to really kick off the next season.
That's interesting, the language that you use, because that is how Yennefer feels about herself. She said so in the last season. She said so in her outburst with 𝘴𝘰𝘃. She said basically everyone just wants to use you and no one likes you for who you are. So that's interesting. I wonder if that'll come up when she coaches her, because she definitely tells her in one of the previous episodes, she says, even if we get separated, remember that power is the only thing, which I thought was like, she's kind of passing on her own unhealthy messages. It's like, don't go for love, don't go for relationships, don't go for family. Power, it's all you need.
I think a big thing that though is protection. And she knows that she has to have that power to protect herself, because she can do everything else. She can love other people. She can want other things, but Yen knows who she's dealing with, from the mages especially. I mean, like 𝘧𝘵𝘃, him alone, especially those, and the Northern Realms, because again, she's been a advisor, if you will. So she knows these people will not treat her well, and that power is the only way for her to protect herself.
Yeah. I mean, it would make sense for someone like Yen to think that.
Spot on.
So another group that wants Cirilla is the elves. So basically the elves are now sitting around a campfire, which is, in the beginning of the season, we see them in the forest, and we get the impression they've been hiding in the forest for a long time. So now they're kind of like back at square one. And they do say, we should return to Cintra before they come for us, which I'm like, what exactly are you thinking? I don't know what, how exactly do you think you're going to be treated by Cintra now that you left them? Whatever. So Gage, once again, is being a moral person. He's like, we had our revenge, let's end it here. Let's not go killing any more people. Gage, I like moral characters, what can I say? And Francesca is still sitting there stewing in her hatred, and she's like, no. Oh, actually, sorry, Thilvandrel says this. He says, we want justice. And to me, it's just, it's perpetuating kind of global justice for something that happened thousands of years ago. And, you're perpetuating evil on people who have not done anything to you, just because they're part of a race that has done something to you over the years or at some point. So bothers me.
They're very much ready to go to war against the humans now. I think she's done trying to find a home, and she's gonna take one.
Yeah, and that's the biggest thing, because 𝘕𝘰𝘪𝘵 does not come back after the Edge of the World. He's never in the saga or the novels. And the only thing that Francesca really cares about is a home for the elves. As far as I remember, she does not care about Ciri at all, like never does anything. So for them to introduce that the elves, now that she could save us, and going back, I know, to Ithlinne's prophecy, is it just interesting. And yeah, it throws another iron in the fire of people that I guess could go after Ciri, but I definitely think that they have bigger issues, such as like killing all those babies, I guess.
Yeah, and I don't know what the relationship with Nilfgaard is going to be like now, which I'm there now. It could be, I mean, it could be anything. I really don't know, but yeah. So how does she come to wanting Ciri? Istredd is discovered. He's hanging around there. They bring him in. And they're like, I don't care, just kill him, which, because they don't really care about people at all. And Israel's like, no. They're like, he tries talking about Ciri, which I'm not quite sure about his motivations. What do you think his motivations were for wanting to tell the elves about Ciri?
I can't really remember how he ended up in this situation. But so because he was previously with Nilfgaard, wasn't he? But then he ended up with the Brotherhood. And now he's with the elves. I mean, maybe this is him at a panic station. He knows he's going to be killed, so he's using information just to save his own ass. But yeah, I'm not entirely sure, to be honest.
Wait, how? That's true. I don't remember. How did he get
there?
He
and Geralt were there, weren't they?
Around. The guards schlepped him in, and they're like, "Oh, he was creeping around here," which to me,
yeah,
approached the elves and he wanted to tell them this information. I think, is he trying, because I know he's sympathetic towards the elves and he was trying to help them plan escape routes. So does he think, he tells them that she's 𝘕𝘰𝘪𝘵, right? She's elder blood, and he prophesies she can save us. So does he think he can help the elves this way?
Yeah, and he also does say, because for the other podcast that I do, we just did episode 5, that he's trying to help the elves in Cintra, but then he admits to Geralt, nah, I came here for a woman. Like, so it's kind of like, yeah, I'm helping him out, but I was really here looking for Yennefer. And I don't know, because you're right. I just assumed it was, again, as a self-preservation thing. They're saying kill him, and he's going to do whatever he can, obviously not to be killed, knowing that they're elves, knowing 𝘕𝘰𝘪𝘵, elder blood, that they would be interested in that. So I think it's just the same thing where it's self-preservation. But yeah, now I'm really wondering, where, like, how the hell was he just out there? Yeah, was he skulking around these forests for?
Yeah, I think he went to tell them because he thought it would help them.
Yeah, I suppose. Oh, and that's true, because see, that's another massive show inclusion is 𝘧𝘵𝘵𝘪𝘵. 𝘧𝘵𝘵𝘪𝘵 is not ever come back after the lesser evil. He's a much bigger character now, very antagonistic, in this kind of two sides of Aretuza, which was, again, not in the books. It was always very unified at this point of Aretuza. And so I guess that's true. If he realizes, if 𝘧𝘵𝘵𝘪𝘵 is in charge of this power play between Vilgefortz and Tissaia and 𝘧𝘵𝘵𝘪, that, he doesn't even want to choose a side there. So maybe he sees the elves as a way out, which seems a really poor ally, but good for him. I like the elves. Good luck.
I think he sides with the underdog. I think that's his personality.
Yeah.
Okay.
He thinks is the underdog.
They're definitely the underdog.
Yeah. So speaking of another person who wants Ciri, the owl, Philippa, overhears this, goes back to Dijkstra. Finally, she turns into her human form. And she tells them, that they also want the elves. And he's like, okay, fine. And then he tells them something very curious. Sorry, he tells Philippa, he says, bring me back the bard. It's time that he paid back his benefactor. So I didn't know any connection between the bard and Dijkstra.
That was something revealed very quickly in the books in Blood of Elves. I was about to say Dandelion, but Dandelion's like, Jaskier is spying for Dijkstra and Redania, like openly, like Yen knows it, like they know that he's a spy, like throughout. So that was, again, I didn't think they just were going to do it. I was like, okay, he's just not going to be a spy, which will be kind of weird. But now it's looking like, oh, he was. Okay, so they kind of pulled that out on me at the end.
I didn't even think of that. I thought he was just his patron of the arts.
Yeah, and they also make him his character is very different, because it's what you would call now in this modern society kind of problematic.
Okay.
As a womanizer, and he says some really, really bad things that would probably get him canceled now, to Yen, especially in some of the short stories, like really like kind of shocking that I knew they wouldn't put in the show. And so he's very like altruistic. He was helping the elves also. That is not like book Jaskier. He's not that nice. He's not a good person. He's not a bad person, but he's not anything like that. He's just he's a bard that likes to sing, and you know, go, he's a womanizer, like absolutely no question about that. And he says stuff in here, but we don't actually see him womanizing at all. As a matter of fact, we never see him with a woman, period, do we?
He refers to it, but we
never actually see him doing it. And like, that's just a big thing of him, is he's this almost libertine, if you want to call it that. But I do like that they included that. I just wish we kind of maybe could have seen a little bit of the subterfuge, or at least maybe get his being a little cautious with it, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, it doesn't seem, you know, sometimes when you know information and you go back, you see those clues.
Yeah.
So far, I don't see it, but yeah, maybe when we get to next season, we'll rewind and check it out.
Like if he's spying for Redania, why is he the sandpiper? Wasn't that he was? He was the sandpiper, like helping the elves out of Oxenfurt. Like, again, Oxenfurt's supposed to be in Redania. If Redania doesn't care about I don't know. Again, maybe I'm just looking too much into it.
Yeah, I didn't even, to be honest, I didn't even pick up. I picked up on that he wanted the bard, but I didn't pick up on it. I don't think I fully understood what it meant by benefactor. So, but it does seem a bit out of nowhere, isn't it? I know what you mean. Usually on a second watch through, like what we said about Dooney in the dream before, on a second watch through, you might notice that the second time and think, he doesn't because he's still alive. But there's nothing that I would watch back and think, oh yeah, Jaskier is, you know, spying. I did really like this little scene. It was quite short with Dijkstra and Philippa, but in the scene with the elves beforehand, I really like how the whole way through the scene, you can hear an owl hooting. And I was sitting going, Philippa's there. And then you finally get the reveal. And I'm excited to see more of her. I think she'll be really good.
Yeah, it was really, because she was at Sodden. She's a really big player. And for her to really be introduced in one of the last seasons, season 2, I guess I can't really spoil it because they haven't done it the same way, but she, for the most part, was the leader of like Aretuza, and like the leader kind of ongoing. So for such a big character for them to throw in here at the end is, again, just one of those changes that, you know, we'll see what happens with it.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. So now we go back to Pier Morgan, and unfortunately, more things I don't understand. But, you know, she has a conversation with Geralt. Geralt says, I don't forgive you, but looks like you're the only person who can teach her magic, which, frankly, I'll say you weren't trying very hard before. Like, you took her to Melitelli and she was there for like 5 minutes before she got attacked. So it's not like Melitelli really had their, you know, enough time to try teaching her magic. But okay, so he decides, we'll keep Yen around because she can teach her. And she's like, as if I trust anyone else with her. I'm like, you literally tried to kill her yesterday. I can't understand. So sudden. Fine. And then they talk about how, let's see, 𝘕𝘰𝘪𝘵, right? 𝘕𝘰𝘪𝘵. It's a very long name. The dragons. You know, he says how, you know, he told them that they were destined for each other, but nothing would happen because destiny is not enough. And, you know, the telling thing for me was just how I don't know how to say that, but he's like ensnared by Yen. There's just something about Yen that he can't let go of. And like, even though she did what she did to his daughter, he just has to have her next to him. And he says he doesn't forgive her, but I don't know, he looks really close.
Yeah.
I don't know if the show means to teach us about unhealthy relationships or if their love is supposed to be inspiring. I personally find it more of the latter. Like, I think that he is enslaved to her in some way that she doesn't deserve. Like, I didn't like Yennefer at all until the Battle of Sodden, because she finally did something nice for other people at that. And then throughout the season, you know, she was actually being nice. She was, you know, she tried to help that Damian the guy who got pulled under, in the sewers, and she tried to help the little elven girl, and she felt bad for the elf. So like, finally, I was like, oh, you have a heart, Yennefer. Like, you actually care about other people than yourself. So I started to like her more, but that doesn't mean she's a good person or a healthy person to be in a relationship with. So, and again, I'm assuming this differs from the books, but at least show Yennefer is like pretty unhealthy person, damaged person. So Geralt loving her, to me, just shows like when you need someone so badly, even if they're bad for you.
Yeah, the betrayal of the whole Ciri, that she's gonna like betray, if you will, or take her there, and then had the change of heart. Yeah, it's hard to really wrap around with everything else that happens around it. And I'm still I don't have a good answer either. I just kind of look, because yeah, you're right. It just, again, I've beaten this dead horse. But it's just they haven't had enough time together. And I know I said that about Geralt and Siri. I've said that about Geralt and everybody. Like, just Geralt and Yen, that we had that the last wish from the first season. Oh, they were destined. But as again mentioned by the villain 𝘬𝘪𝘵𝘀 and the 𝘸𝘰𝘰𝘬𝘴 jackdaws, that it needs more and nothing will ever come of it. But they're just not working on that, like from the show aspect or their own relationship aspect. It's just kind of going, and they're saying we're supposed to do it, and then we're supposed to believe it. And like you said, Geralt's like, oh yeah, we're supposed to be together, or destiny and all this, but it's like, why? Yeah. Why would you really want to at this point? So I'm just kind of at the same, I'm just tossing out darts, trying to hope one hits.
It's so hard to like disassociate yourself with the Yen and Geralts that from other, from the game. For me and for Brett would be the books and the games. So that's why your perspective is really interesting, Mindy, because you just know the Netflix version of this couple. So for me, I keep thinking of Yen and Geralt in Witcher 3, and like their relationship in that it's not perfect by any means, but you do get they definitely got more of a grounded sort of understanding of each other, whereas here it's kind of all over the place and completely distrusting, and I'm not completely there with them yet, but like that's why it's interesting to hear your opinion, because you're not sort of guided at all by what you know from other things.
And such a big thing also is their bonding with Ciri helps them bond, and they have that where they both eventually have this love of what amounts to a daughter, in which they both also can't have children, and so that kind of brings them together as well. And that obviously was a massive miss on the show as far as like Yen and Ciri are concerned.
Yeah, I my assumption was always that it'll develop in future seasons, and that they kind of pushed that off. They just added more drama and then pushed off the developing of relationships later. But yeah,
but that's the stories, and I think that's the easiest way to find out, to me, if someone understands what the books and what the essence of The Witcher is. And if they think it's about badass monster hunter and badass fighter, then I'm like, okay, you did not understand these books at all. If you think that The Witcher is about The Witcher and about monster hunting, and it's all about relationships. It's Ciri first and foremost, and it's Geralt and them, and then it's a group of people that may get together. It's all relationships, and it's all how they interact while all this ongoing stuff is happening. It's almost this massive thing, and kind of seeing here, we're seeing this conflict, like we see these wars, and Geralt's just weaving his way through all of this while all this massive stuff is happening. It's the same thing of telling a story about a father looking for his son in World War II, as the landing at Normandy or something like that. And somewhere inland, while these bombs are going off and these paratroopers are going on, some guy's just looking for his son. There's this major thing going on that's real world stakes, but to this person, if you're telling that story, it's small stakes, but it's everything to them. And that's what this is. He's traversing this world of the continent, trying to find his daughter, trying to find all these people while these life-changing events are going on. And so that's just something that they still have time to do it. Mm-hmm. But like you said before, Mindy, as well, if they're pushing these things on, you eventually can't do it because it's too much. Like we need the groundwork of the relationships, the groundwork of the stakes, to then make everything else hit later on.
Yeah, and also to me, Ciri's reaction. So, we have at least Geralt tells her, oh, I don't forgive you. So there's some, pushback. But Ciri, who was the one who was almost sacrificed by her, they go out and Ciri tells them both, I'm tired of darkness. And they just sit down together, and Geralt's like, us three will all help each other. And I'm like, Ciri should be like, get Yen away from me. Like, I don't want her near me. But she doesn't. She just is like, oh, fun.
Yeah, it's a weird one. I didn't think about that initially when I was watching it, but then when I watched it today, it did kind of hit me where I was like, there's no, like, Geralt's made it very clear that he's not forgiving Yen and he doesn't trust her, but Ciri has not made that clear. Whether or not Ciri's still kind of just, a bit in shock probably and overwhelmed, but hopefully we'll maybe see at the start of the next series, maybe she's not warming to Yen so much as she was initially, because whenever they first meet in the temple, I kind of feel like Ciri immediately really takes to Yen and really likes being around her. So hopefully it doesn't just get forgotten or pushed to one side that Yen did what she did by Ciri as well as Geralt.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's very, very urgent that they address it. I mean, to me, like, okay, I can see that if they want to, add the drama and like they want that to be a new element, like betrayal and overcoming that, if it's well done. So this scene ends where basically Geralt does this exposition. He explains like what he thinks happened, that her scream woke Voleth Meir way back, when she was escaping, whatever, she was being kidnapped out of Cintra, and Voleth Meir wants to go home. Again, whatever, not very well communicated, but fine. And then he's like, how did Nilfgaard, know about you? How did they know who you are? And then we end with the last scene. I thought that was actually well done to lead to the last scene, where it's very exciting. Emir finally shows up, and they're walking into this throne room, and 𝘕𝘰𝘪 and Fringilla are carrying out their plan, and they're like, yeah, we totally killed that elf baby because we wanted the elves to give up hope and fight for us. And Emir's like, oh, elves don't care about elves. How do you do that? And he's like, yeah, we killed the baby. And then he says, the child was brutal but can move mountains. I should know. And then he turns around with the big reveal. I killed the baby. The only way to find my daughter, and boom, boom, it's 𝘕𝘪𝘵. And he's like, take them away. And 𝘕𝘰𝘪 and Fringilla are probably imprisoned or something.
Yeah, this was good because this was a reveal that was literally in like the third to last chapter of the final novel. So for them to get this out of the way is massive, but I also think it's very smart because like the one, Lucy, you talked about that you haven't been spoiled at, the minute you said it, that's a massive one too, that a lot of people are just got ruined on or spoiled, if you will. But to just get this one out, you don't have to worry about, oh, who is this? And it allows them to actually do more with 𝘕𝘪𝘵, who now we know is Ciri's father, who is alive. Now it's all, wait a minute, they died in a shipwreck. Why is she dead? Why is he alive? And then they can kind of go from there. So no, this was great. I can only imagine the people that didn't know, like Mindy, I'm assuming.
That's what I was going to ask. Yeah.
While the scene was going on, I was like, she's her dad. It's 𝘕𝘵𝘵, just because of what he was saying.
Yeah.
So like 5 seconds before he turned around, I knew it was him.
Okay. But even in that moment there, it's
that's like, good. Yeah.
Yeah. Just a huge cliffhanger. That's a good way to end the season also.
Yeah. And I know, I heard interviews where, and people were verifying this, that basically in the books, apparently, you see the name Emir, but like, because it's not a visual medium, the author can hide from the audience that it's 𝘕𝘵, but in the movie you would have to like have him for 5 seasons without like with the mask on or something.
And he doesn't appear that often, but obviously the only person that we would know it would be Geralt, and Geralt never comes face to face with him until this chapter at the very end of the books. And the way it's like described, it's always Nilfgaardian people, and there's no direct description, because they could have done that. I know that's a big thing that in Game of Thrones or Song of Ice and Fire that George R. Martin did, whereas to hint at it, you describe characters, the same characteristics, but never using their name, because some people wouldn't know. And they didn't really do that, at least I can think of. So it's just, this allows them to do more with it, and they should have more fun with this character for sure. Because again, he's not in the books that much. But there is something. Well, never mind. Never mind.
Yeah, it makes us very intrigued in the next season, because my first question is like, why is he going through all this like weird route to get his daughter? How did he land up in Nilfgaard? How's he the White Flame? Why did he start a cult? Like, it just brings up all these questions.
So
like,
many
what?
questions.
Well, the cult, see, that's, oh man, the whole Nilfgaard and like the cult, it's not, he didn't start this. Like this cult is not like him doing it. This is just the Nilfgaardian religion, this cult of the great sun. He is the white flame. They don't even think they say the white flame dancing on the barrows of his enemies or the graves of his foes, which, Lucy, you would have heard that from the games. Yeah, that's like his title. He's the white flame dancing, because basically and they mentioned the usurper in the first season. Fringilla mentions the usurper, so that's actually in the show as well. This usurper rises up, kills Emir's father named Fergus. He takes over. Eventually people find Emir, who was, you know, Dunny and all that. They get him for somehow, well, that they put him back on the throne, and he basically executed the usurper to where they don't even know his name. Like, they've erased his name from existence and everybody else. And in his like palace or the throne room or whatever it is, are the barrows or the graves of those people. So he walks on their graves like every day, and everybody walks on them. Hence, he's the white flame dancing on the graves of his foes. And they've really upped the religion and the cult of Nilfgaard so much. And it's one of those things, again, by having Fringilla and Kyr repeat so often, the white flame, it's so different that, again, I have nothing to add on it because I don't know what they're doing with it. They've made it just so much more important. And I don't know, maybe in the show, it might be him that started this religion, but that is not really what it was. It's just the Nilfgaardian great sun.
Did the part with Fringilla and Kyr, you know, getting thrown in prison happen in the books?
No, Fringilla is, I don't even know if Fringilla even shows up at this time. Her role is massive. Kyr is, by this time in Blood of Elves, Kyr is actually released, because this is when we see Emir for the first time at the end of Blood of Elves. Kyr has been imprisoned because after Cintra, he failed to get Ciri. He gets arrested, and he's arrested for, I don't know the time period. It might have been a couple years even at this time, months, whatever it is. He's released, and basically Emir goes up to him and goes, okay, you have knowledge of this girl, you know what she looks like, blah, blah, blah. Here's your chance. Like, we're going to execute you. He was going to be executed, but now it's like, here's your chance, go back out and find her. So again, Kyr is 99% different from the books. Fringilla, I'd say, is 95% different. And Kyr is the number one person, if you were to ask me, who am I most interested in? It's him, because if they're going to get him to where he is in the books, I don't know how in the world they're going to do it. I really, truly don't, in any conceivable way. It's the number one thing I think about with this show, because I don't know how much you've been spoiled about what happens to him or what he does, but it is, I don't know how they're going to do it. I really don't.
Oh, okay. Oh.
Yeah, and that's, I don't want to be vague or be like misleading like that, but it's something, you know, without spoiling things, it's just so different what they've done with Nilfgaard. And again, I genuinely have enjoyed it though this season.
Yeah, so I guess this is the perfect time to talk overall about the season. I guess favorite parts. Well, I think we talked extensively about our not favorite parts.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, what are your overall thoughts?
So for me, initially, overall, it seems like so many steps up from season one. Like, I personally, I've maybe watched season one through maybe twice, 3 times, but this one I can see myself going back to a lot more, especially like specific episodes. I think probably my favorite episode is still the first one. I love the story of Nivellen. I love the actor. I thought he did an amazing job. I think it looked really amazing, and I've loved recently Netflix have been posting loads of sort of behind the scenes videos of how they did certain things, and I loved the behind the scenes of how they did Nivellen and how he was like fully in that suit. Apart from his face, everything's real, and I just thought it looked great. And the story was really good. I love how they updated the story to include Ciri, because she's not there in the books. That is one of the stories I have actually read. So that was really cool for me as well, because up until then, I had never had any background knowledge to what I thought was going to happen in the series. But this one, I sort of knew the story, so I felt like I had like the inside scoop on what was going to happen. But I loved the changes they made as well. who I'm most interested in seeing more of. I can't wait to see where Francesca goes. I really, really like her story. Even, you know, I'm not saying I agree with everything she's done, but I think she's one to watch, definitely.
Yeah, Francesca's another one. If 𝘕𝘰𝘪 was changed the most, maybe she's the second most. So I agree with you there. There's, again, if it's going to follow basically along what happens in the books, she also has to do something or has to go on a journey that I don't know how they're going to get there. In that sense there. Overall, I enjoyed the season. I enjoyed it a lot. It was head, shoulders, torso, whatever you want to call it, better than the first season. I was just not a fan of the first season, not from, oh, it's by the books. I don't care about that. From a storytelling and just a watching perspective or experience, the first season was just, to me, it just wasn't very good. And this was just a lot better. They're telling a cohesive, well, for the most part, you know, a cohesive story. And I'm just glad that there's a Witcher show that we can talk about, to experience. It is not an adaptation. At least this was not really an adaptation. They're doing a lot of their own things. They've left out a lot of stuff that I've loved. I mentioned before, I didn't even talk about 𝘱𝘪𝘴𝘰𝘥𝘦. So Lucy, there you go. You don't got to hear that again. The 𝘱𝘱𝘴𝘰𝘥 scene and all that. There's big stuff in there that they haven't, but I'm excited. Like when the season ended, I genuinely was upset that it would be at least a year to watch it again. And to me, that's all I need to know if I enjoyed a show or not.
I was up a height. See, when I probably watched the last 4 episodes in one sitting. And I was honestly like up here after watching the last episode, and I could not settle down. I just wanted to know immediately what was going to happen, because I think especially the build up at the end where you see all these different groups of people basically coming to the same conclusion that they all want to get Ciri. I was just like, I was so excited about it, and I thought it was a great ending overall, and it made me so excited for season 3.
Yeah, the Wild Hunt is here. 𝘕𝘰𝘵 is here. Like they're kind of really starting to get a lot
many
of the
character reveals.
Yeah, a lot of the big characters, a lot of that. And like I said, and I did actually see a tweet from her saying that the next book, Time of Contempt, is a lot easier to translate and adapt. So I think they'll kind of, you know, and again, it's whatever, it's their own story. They don't have to do the other things, but there is one thing, again, that they're really going to have to really tie everything to. And when they adapt the source material, it's really good, like A Grain of Truth. It was great. And what they changed from A Grain of Truth, I mean, me and Lucy talked about this already, but we liked it better, like the ending and what they did. And so they've shown that they can do that. And I just hope, you know, I hope the executives, I hope the people in charge trust them to be able to slow things down, trust the writers with good dialogue, and, you know, really land these character moments.
Yeah, I think like what you said, you know, you kept talking about how so much of what was in this season was new, and that it was very ambitious. I think you're right. Like I didn't, you know, really hearing from you how much was added, that is pretty ambitious. And I can see how it's hard to get all that like story and tell it well. Yeah, I have to say, like, you know, the fact that someone like me is watching The Witcher is a very big accomplishment for them, because I exclusively watch rom-coms. When I watch something, I like to have happy everywhere, unicorns and rainbows and happy endings. So if I watch something serious,
one of those may come into The Witcher. It should. One of them will, I promise. You'll get.
Yeah. So, you know, and I also, you know, my husband, I got this through this because of a long story with webtoons, but my husband was sure I would last 10 minutes. He's like, it's violent, it's gory, you're not gonna be able to stand it. And I had to like cover my face for the gory parts, but I was hooked and I'm now obsessed. So kudos to them for making me, you know, fascinated by the world.
There you go.
And yeah, in terms of characters,
great.
also, fell in love with the characters. I want to know what's gonna happen to them. Yeah, for me also, it's the ones that I'm most interested in are 𝘱𝘰𝘪𝘴 and Fringilla, because they both started out as like, you know, they were presented as the villains from Nilfgaard and they're coming to destroy, and then we get their human side and I'm like, okay, what's going to happen with them? You know, Fringilla has her arc of becoming a leader, 𝘱𝘰𝘪𝘴 has the arc of being less of a jerk. So I'm curious.
I guess that would be, and I'm saying this, I've had to go to the bathroom for a long time now, but you see this, I want to talk about it because we know what Fringilla wants, right? Like it's just like she wants power, right? She wants to be in charge, make a difference, whatever. What does 𝘕𝘰𝘪𝘴 want?
Okay, I'm with you on that because remember in episode 4, he told Yen, he was like, oh, to say I tried to get into my mind, and what would she have found? I was like, yes, what would she have found? Tell me, what's your motivation? What drives you? Yeah. Why are you who you are? And all he said was, we serve 𝘕𝘰𝘪𝘴 because he served us first. Yeah. So to me, that was like just kind of a chapter heading, like what comes next? I need an explanation. What does that mean? He served you first. Were you in trouble and he saved you? Like why? Why are you so into the white flame? Why are you such a fanatic? He doesn't strike me as the kind of, servile person who just needs a leader. Like he's an independent person. He's very, sharp-witted, and he seems to want to do his own thing. So I'm curious, like why was he so motivated to serve the white flame?
Yeah. And that's my just ultimate problem, like with him, and why he's the number one person I want to see is like what I don't know what they're going to do with him. So, yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, I think I'm going to let you go to the bathroom now. Thank you so much for coming on. This was such a pleasure. It was so nice to discuss all this with you guys.
Thank you for having us. It's been good. Yeah.
No, it's great. And like, Lucy said, and I think we've said before, just getting the different perspectives is always great because it is rare to have just a show watcher and someone not, at least with the games, overwhelmingly is the games. And then you kind of have the books and everything in there. But no, it's nice to hear because you said like, we'll watch something. And like with 𝘕𝘰𝘪𝘴, I'm talking about his motivation. I'm like, well, I'm only saying that because I know where he's supposed to go. But someone who doesn't would be like, well, he's a zealot. There is no motivation. He's just a zealot. He's serving. It's like, oh, well, that's true. So that's probably what it also be. So no, thank you for the invite. And this was great.
Yes. Well, thank you. And yeah, hopefully we'll be interacting more in the future.
Perfect.
Definitely.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Have a great day, guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much to my current patrons: Susie, Lady Libras, Lily, Jenny, Molly, Veronica, Emily, Joe Rochelle, Saucy Tacos, Meg, Anne Rose, Priya, Alexa, Misty, Joanne, Patty, Emilta, Esther, I'm Watching You People, Tortoise Poppy Seed, Marie, Emily, Jean, Jen, Erin, Kay, Lily, Beckett, Miranda, Christine, Sadie, Kelly, Daniel, Teresa, Mrs. Castaldo, Jen, and Tatiana. Your support is truly appreciated.